Hi guys, and welcome back to askNK. So today we will be talking about an app which is called MUSH3D, and this app is definitely something that has existed before and is still in existence, but previously it was known as the Shot Sculpt. And this app is an app that is targeted to helping you modify your Alembic caches. So just in case you are trying to get those nice deformations or those muscles or those cloth simulations or those amazing jiggles that you may want to get, but let's say your DCZ app doesn't really support you that much, then this is the app for you. This app is the app that would get these things out of the way for you and make it quite easy for you to sculpt directly onto your geometry and do all of those fun stuff that you may want to do. And so without further ado, let's go right into this app and see how it works. And nonetheless, I'm going to put links in the description, so just in case you want to check out the app and check out who's going to give us the free assets that we're going to make use of today, links are going to be in the description, guys. And this model from Marvellous Designer has been made available to us by a sister channel called ZARIFE. So if you want to learn anything that has to do with Marvellous Designer cloth simulation, if you have questions about making clothes or how you can do your 3D design, fabric design, sew those amazing wares onto your 3D models, you can go over to ZARIFE, and I'm going to put links in the description so you'll be able to find that out. So this model is what we're going to use today and play with this amazing app called MUSH3D. And right off the bat, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at the simulation of this model, right? So this model, we would want to get it out of here into the app which we're going to make use of and create some amazing effect with it. Actually, this is going to be like a simple walkthrough which shouldn't take so much time. So I'll jump right from here and go over to the animation section, and because we've already cached this before now, I'm just going to go ahead and play these back, right? So you can see we have this very nice animation. All right, so if you want to still learn how this is done, you can also go over to ZARIFE and check it out. She definitely has something there that will teach you how to do this. But the frames or the animation which we want, we would like to have it from, let's say 20. So I'm just going to go over from here, dial in 20, and we're going to move away from here and get into the app by simply exporting our geometry as Alembic, right? So I'm going to go over from here, go to export, and export as Alembic. Definitely the Alembic you would want to export is the Ogawa Alembic and not the HDF5, right? Not that one, yeah? So you go ahead and export this, all right? So you go export this. I already exported this here. So if you want to export that, you just simply export it and, bring it right into MUSH3D. So with MUSH3D open, what we're going to do is just definitely go over to file and import, and we want to import this Alembic file, right? So once we just simply click, we'll be able to import this Alembic file, and you'll notice that the file comes directly here. And once we have our file here, the best thing which we can do so that we'll be able to see this is to press F on our keyboard, just like the very industry way, or should I say the very Maya and ZBrushy way, right? Okay, so just like that very same way, we will be able to, focus on this model or on this geometry and play with it. So what we want to do is go ahead and modify the Alembic. So if you want to modify an Alembic like this, there are certain things that you would want to do. First and foremost, let's play this through and see what we have, all right? And, by default, Marvellous gives you amazing deformation. So just in case you are wondering if we're using this just because of the deformation, Marvellous gives you amazing deformation. All we want to do is just go ahead and just play around with this model and see what this app can offer and if it is actually the app for you. So just in case you're looking for that next thing that you would use to deform your Alembics, then maybe you should look into an app like this. So let's play this real quick and look at it. So I'm just pressing the playback button, all right? And you see it goes all the way from there, and we get that very nice Alembic simulation happening, right? But now we don't want to start our animation from here, right? So we have a time slider here, which I'm going to use to just simply, drag across through to this place, all right? And before we actually go into playing with this tool, it would be nice if I can just simply review the entire UI. First and foremost, I'm a huge fan of a very simple, straightforward working UI. I just don't understand the fact why the icons are a bit too big compared to the text. The text seems to be quite small. I don't really know why. I don't know the idea behind it. I just think if the text was a little bit bigger, especially for the brushes that is here, right? I'm talking about these ones. Especially for the brushes that are there, they would make more sense. Also, for the UI, there is no place where you can easily access help, right? So just when you're working within this app, there is no help whatsoever. So you're just stuck with your own pre-designed, preconceived knowledge of other 3D app, which is kind of I don't know what to say about that. All right, so there's nothing like that can help you get through to this. Other things that I felt like maybe we're going to find in an app like this, which I have actually not seen, is like a scaling unit. So there's basically no scaling unit. It simply means you cannot scale your objects properly when you bring them here. You cannot convert inches to mesh to meters, and you cannot convert those stuff. So you don't know what dimension or what measuring unit, right, that your model is coming in. So whatever app you're exporting from, you need to make sure you know what measuring unit you're bringing in here, else you'll be stuck with an unknown measuring scale or unknown measuring unit. And maybe once you're done with this, you have to go over to your rendering app and start scaling that down. So these are like the things which I feel like you don't really get, and the user experience here is a little bit nice. All right, it's a little bit nice in the sense that you get to figure things out as you work. It's not like other apps where you need tons and tons of tutorials to get things working. You just get to figure things out as you work. And real quick, I would like to talk about some things that are quite similar with this. So if you've used the pose editor in Maya before, which gets to do with posing or editing certain poses of your character, or if you've used something like Sculpt that exists in Lightwave, it is quite similar to this. Just that with this, you are actually working directly on your cached out Alembic file. All right, so the difference is just that you're working directly on your cached out Alembic file, while in Maya you're still working with the geometry. And I think Sculpt also does the same thing, so you can go and check out those ones as well, just in case you have a little bit of an idea what that does. Another thing I would like to talk to you guys about is once you're bringing in a mesh, okay, we have to pardon me for this one, right? But once you're bringing in a mesh, you need to make sure that your mesh is quite dense. All right, so you need to make sure that you have a quite dense mesh, because you might need to sculpt in some details. So let's talk about the brushes then. And if you want to work with this, you definitely have a couple of brushes. You have a couple of brushes here, right? And these brushes are basically what you get to work with. Before you start off with this, you need to be able to create a layer. So I'm going to go ahead and choose one of these layers and create them. So if I click on the sculpt layer, that simply suggests that I want to go ahead and sculpt on my geometry. And all of these sculpts are quite similar to the standard sculpting brushes that you've always used. So whether you're using Cinema 4D, whether you're using ZBrush, whether you're using Modbox or Blender or even Maya, right? All of these brushes are quite similar. The clay brush is exactly what the clay brush does. You can go ahead and use your middle mouse button to increase your brush size, reduce your brush size, and add clay. All right, I'm sorry for that deformation there. Okay, so you can go ahead and sculpt directly here. All right, and the same thing happens with the move brush. So with the move brush, you'll be able to move geometry around. With the standard brush, you can simply go ahead and still sculpt things. Use the inflate brush to make some parts bigger, some parts smaller. With the clone brush, this is actually a very interesting one. With the clone brush, instead of cloning stuff, you'll be able to tight out, or should I say pinch things around. So if I select this clone brush and use the middle mouse button to increase my brush size, if I hold down shift, right, with my middle mouse button, I can increase and reduce the intensity. Okay, and once that is done, I would go ahead and just simply, let's just play with this one more time. I can just simply go ahead and pinch in some of these parts. All right, let me just undo that real quick. So this is one of those brushes that are quite different. I mean, the clone brush, it's one of those brushes that actually sounds different, or sounds like, you know, it's going to make a clone of your object, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make any clone. It doesn't. All right. Now the mask, we're going to look at the mask. With the wrinkle, you can go ahead and wrinkle some parts of geometry. So for example, if I have a part like this, I can simply use the wrinkle to wrinkle this part of the geometry. All right. Can use it to wrinkle that part of the geometry, and with a cloth brush you can use it to, you know, deform some parts. We'll go ahead and play with these later. This is your default select, move, rotate, and scale. Very basic stuff. So the main keys you would work with when you're working in an app like this, we've already talked about the navigation. It's a very Maya-like navigation, which means you have to hold down Alt and, you know, middle mouse button, right mouse button, and, you know, with the left mouse button to orbit. All right, very Maya-like, or should I say very industry-like kind of navigation. Okay, so once you have this ready, okay, you may now want to go ahead and start making changes to your geometry, and we can get that happening by simply coming here. All right, so we have this selected, we can come there, or we can select that and simply use the inflate brush to inflate certain parts. So let's say I would like to inflate some parts of her, parts of this character. Oh, that's a bit too much. Okay, so I can, that's a little bit too much as well. Okay, I can come through and start sculpting some parts around. And if you want to invert your sculpt by any means, you need to hold down Control on your keyboard. So if I'm using the clay and I'm getting results like this, if I hold down Control, I'll get an inverted result. Let's go ahead and use the standard. All right, so if I hold down Control, I would get an inverted result as well. The shift is also used just like you use that in other apps to smooth out places. Okay, so you can use the smooth, or you can use the shift, sorry, to smooth out places. So, you know, a place like this or something like that, you can go ahead, hold down Control, bump those parts up, smooth it out, all of those things. Now this might look very similar to you being able to just take your stuff from, let's say, Marvellous Designer and going into ZBrush, but that is not the case. The case here is you have an animated geometry and you want to make changes to it. So for a quick change or something I would like to do, I may want to be able to add some wrinkle behind those cloths. So I can come through, so let's try with the cloth brush, okay, and see what we can do. And I can scale this up, hold down Shift to just play with intensity a little bit, and then I can just add some wrinkle to this. All right, actually I think I should scale this brush a little bit lower, and then I can add some wrinkle to it. And you would notice that automatically once I add this wrinkle, let's smooth this out just a tiny bit because it's a bit too much. All right, let me tighten that back up a little bit. Okay, so if I have this done and press play, you can see I have this happening. All right, I have this happening there. Let's go ahead and turn this, and you know, if I push the intensity down, up, down, you can notice what's happening here. Now if you take a very good look at the timeline, you would notice we have a tiny red button, and that is a keyframe. A keyframe is basically what a keyframe is. All right, so it's a keyframe and it's keying that particular frame at that point in time. We're making that changes, and if you want to make more changes, you can go ahead and hold down Shift at any point, all right, and simply click. Okay, so we hold down Shift and click, and then we can go ahead and create another keyframe. So within this part, this is another keyframe, so we can come through and, you know, start making more changes within this part. All right, so I can just come through, make more changes around here, and you know, we have that keyframe there, right? And also at any point I would want to, let's say I'm coming here and I want to make another keyframe, all right, by holding down Shift and just clicking, I'm making another keyframe. But now what I want to do is maybe the keyframe in the middle, I am not so comfortable about it. Okay, and by the way, for you to move any key, you need to be able to do that by using the right click. Okay, I'm using a pen tab here, so I'm just using the right button. Okay, so for you to be able to change or make changes at this point, you can see that we have this wrinkle happening here. I may want to just simply change how the value of this sculpt is, okay, of this change is. So I can hold down my right mouse button or my right click button on my pen and just simply effect more of that or reduce it, okay? Just like you do with your graph editor when you're animating. So you're animating directly and you're seeing it here. Okay, so it's live, it's there, but it's not real time in some cases. It's not real time in the sense that maybe sometimes once you're making some changes, you want to go ahead and sculpt and just play through. It's real time to a point, okay? It's just real time to a point. So let's say I have it at this point and I need this particular change to effect a little bit more. I can come through and just punch it all the way up. Okay, so it was up actually. So I can, you know, bring this one a little bit lower. I can come all the way to this part, press F on my keyboard just to make sure I can see it, and you know, I can bring that down a little bit. So there is a lot of opportunities or possibilities that you can, you know, get from something like this. The same thing happens when you are maybe trying to do some other stuff. So let's look at some other things that you can do with this. Now we've looked at the sculpt. The Mush Brush is also another kind of brush. It's actually one of the simplest brushes here, and what it does is it kind of helps to relax certain parts of the mesh. Okay, so we can look at that real quick. And so for you to be able to work with the Mush Brush, you definitely need something like a geometry that exists. So you need a reference geometry that exists somewhere in the shape window. All right, so we've not seen anything like that. You have to go over to window and go over to shapes, and then you have to find that shape. For you to get a shape inside here, you definitely need to load that. And since we don't have any shape loaded, we're just going to go ahead and just simply close this and skip this now. All right, so I'm going to press delete on my keyboard and accept by saying yes. The next thing which we're going to look at is the relax layers. Typically, like it says, relax is just relax, so it relaxes the parts which you've done stuff on. So you can just turn this on and simply paint this. All right, so I can use this to just paint out some parts that I want to relax. So you use the mask to paint within the parts where you want the relax to occur. So let's say there's a lot of things going on, maybe there's a lot of things going on around here. You can simply use this to paint out some parts, and those parts will actually stay relaxed all through the timeline goes, and you know, all through you play the entire thing. So you're not going to get so much deformation when it gets to those geometry. All right, so this is also something I think you should take your time and look at. Okay, some other use cases we can get here which are quite interesting is the jiggle. Actually, I think I'm a big fan of the jiggle, maybe because I've seen a lot of work that's been done with the jiggle, maybe that's why, or maybe because we just like to get things to jiggle, right? So what we can do now is within the parts where we have the cups, all right, for the character, we may want to have her boobs to jiggle, right? So what we can do now is we can go over and select the jiggle, okay, pick out the mask which we want, and just simply paint this through. Now, before we start painting, I would like us to go ahead and play this one more time and just make sure that we can see what's going on, and then we can, you know, see the differences. All right, so we can go ahead and see the differences. I'm just going to play this, and you can see we have the boobs as a much more static object and nothing is happening. Then what we're going to do now is we'll come through and just simply paint within these areas, right? So I will have this jiggle turned on, then select the mask, then paint within the parts where I want. Let's go ahead and resize our brush, okay? Then I can come through and paint here as well. And let's hold down Shift to actually smooth out this entire thing. All right, and once this is done, next thing which we're going to do is we can come through and just simply add a keyframe. Already we have one here, so let's just see what that looks like. Okay, so we can go through and add a keyframe. Let's play this back and see what we have. So you can see we're having the character's boobs jiggle. So let's just play back, and you can see it's jiggling a little bit too much. So what we can do is, if you hold down Control with this mask turned on, you can go ahead and, you know, invert this. All right, so we just want a little bit of jiggle, not so much. So we just want a little bit around there, and maybe a little bit around here. something like that. I guess this should be okay. So let's see. I guess this should be fine. Okay, so since we have something like this, what we're going to do is to play back and see. So we have quite a nice jiggle happening there. Let's frame this by pressing F one more time, and I think we should add a little bit more, right? I think we should add a little bit more. Okay, so just something like that. That's a bit too much. And also another thing for you to remember is your brush is not locally based. Your brush is more like a globally based brush. Okay, so the size is based off where your brush exists at the point. So if your object is this small and you paint, it's going to just paint every single thing there. If your object is this big and it's in a close-up and you paint, it's going to just paint that small area, right? So you can go ahead and play with this. So you can see we're having our character's boobs bouncing, and if it is bouncing a little bit too much, we can also remember we can always tone this down by using what we have here, which is the keyframe. Okay, so you can key depending on what you want. You can just go ahead and key this down, or you can still have this jiggling, and then you can come through and simply use the time and simply use the intensity. So you can simply use the intensity to tone this down if you want to. By right clicking, you can go ahead and copy, paste frames, add frames wherever you want them to be, and that's about it. And at any point in time you want to simply delete a key. Let's say you've added some keyframes and you want to go ahead and delete those keyframes. You can hold down Control. So let's just add one for example. You can hold down Control and click, and there you can have that out of the way. So this is basically how you can work with this tool. There are certain things that you may also want to know how they happen, but for now these are basic things that happens here. For the camera, right? So for the camera, you can go ahead and click on Window, Show Camera. For now we don't really have much, so it's just one camera because we don't have a camera here, obviously. And if you want to select and let's say deform some parts, you can have this object selected as it is, and you can invert this and let the other parts have the cloth, while this part is just the part that doesn't have the cloth. All right, so let's say you want some parts to jiggle, you can paint the masks in certain places and invert that mask. And maybe if you want to scale a certain region like this, you can go ahead and instead of painting the entire place, you can just paint this particular region where you want. Okay, so let's say you want to paint regions like this, you can go ahead and paint them, and once you're done, you can invert the mask and use the move or certain things like this to scale, move, rotate, or transform that particular part of the geometry. So if I hit on the center pivot, it definitely goes to the center. All right, definitely goes to the center of my object, and I can use the scale to scale certain parts of the model. So the parts that are not selected or that are not masked are the parts that I can manipulate. I can use the rotate to rotate those parts as well. So these are basically things that you should probably know about this app. And if you need more assistance about this, you can jump over to the website at www.mush3d.com and maybe get a trial version to play with it and see what you can do. And basically there is just so much you can do with this tool that has to do with deforming or playing with your Alembic caches. So if you want to work with default geometries and they are not Alembic, this tool is not the tool for you. But if you want to go ahead and bake those animations out, make some tweaks, save some keyframes, get some things happening, maybe the things you cannot really achieve, some muscle deformations, things like that you cannot really achieve by default in your DCC app, then this tool is for you. You can go ahead and find the tool here and play with it. And if you want to purchase this tool, let's look at how much it costs. If you want to purchase this tool, you would be spending about £450 to get this. And yes, this tool exists for Windows and Linux. So in case you're using a Mac, bro, you need to either pick up a Windows or maybe a Linux, and maybe that's just the only way you can get your hands on these two. And so if you are a 3D artist and let's say you're a cloth designer or you want to get into cloth design, then you should go over to ZARIFE and check out the page there and get some things going, learn how to work with Marvellous Designer or Cloth 3D. And if you want to get your stuff done like this, definitely you should try and check out this app and use it for your own, you know, projects and stuff like that. And if you like this video, simply give it a like and don't forget to share with your friends. And if you learned something, it would be amazing if you can just simply put a comment within the comment section. And if you're new here, it will be amazing if you can hit that subscribe button, and also don't forget to turn on notification so that you'll be the first to know once we upload a new video. And until I see you guys next time with a review, rants, tutorial, free Friday, updates, tips and tricks, things like this. Peace.